Hello, and welcome to another episode of Coach Better from Eduro Learning. My name is Clint Hamada.
And my name is Kim Capino, and we'll be your hosts for today's episode. Today, we're talking to Katy Vance, librarian at Yokohama International School in Japan. Katy talks about how coaches make her an even more awesome version of herself. And Katy combines a wealth of experience as a classroom teacher and a librarian in schools around the world to identify her keys to building a culture of coaching. From prioritizing community and connections, to valuing risk-taking and learning from failure, to a culture of openness and collaboration. For Katy, it all comes down to relationships. Once again, Clint and I have both worked at Yokohama International School, and hearing Katy's perspective and experience on such a community-minded school really helps highlight all of the different ways that coaches can support building that culture of collaboration from right within your school. Welcome everyone to our Coach Better podcast. We're here today with Katy. Katy, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Katy Vance. I am currently the librarian at Yokohama International School in Japan. I've been in education for about 15 years, and I've been a librarian in Japan, Angola, and the United States. And before that, I taught high school and middle school English in the US and Brazil.
Awesome. So you have a bunch of different perspectives you can kind of pull from all the different schools that you've worked at and your roles as librarian and classroom teacher as well. The first thing we are curious about is, in your perspective as a librarian, what do you think coaches do? What is their role in a school? How would you describe that coaching position?
I really like to think of coaches as people that give me that extra oomph, both in my role as a librarian. I am the person who gets to go in and support people with something maybe that they've always wanted to try and help build it up and make it better. But also as a librarian, I do a lot of work in content areas that I sometimes don't have a huge amount of skill or background knowledge to. And I often need a lot of support from people who are coaching, say, in an EAL position or an IT position, and they come in and they take my strong content that I have and they help me raise it up to that next level to really make the teaching and learning better for the kids that I'm working with.
I think that vision or that idea of working with that EAL teacher and you kind of providing the content and you providing the experiences, and then they're using their fresh eyes and their experiences as a coach, and especially for me, for EAL, I don't have a whole lot of experience in that realm. So to have them give me some strategies and to have them give me some things to think about and say, what is it that you're really trying to accomplish, and how can we make that accessible for our EAL students or our learning support students, or how can we make that, change that up when looking from an educational technology point of view. I think that's a super powerful way of viewing that collaboration with those coaches.
And, I think something that people don't talk about a lot when it comes to coaching, both as a librarian, and then I'm thinking of like some of the things that Matt, the guy that I work with here as an IIT and a tech coach, is that sometimes we do some of that hard, messy, dirty work that is a little bit annoying to help make the more complicated or really beautiful lesson moment happen. And I think that that's really important. It's also a lot of the way that you get buy-in sometimes. When I'm feeling overwhelmed by a tech thing that I want to try, Matt often does something that's actually really kind of straightforward and simple, or maybe a little, the word is not bureaucratic, but kind of clerical almost, but he'll check off those small boxes so that then he and I can move on to this larger collaboration together. And I think it's that smoothing the way to be able to take some risks and try things that are maybe a little bit scary or difficult.
Such a good point about that background work that oftentimes people don't see, but is a big part of the role of a coach and a librarian, as you describe.
Yeah.
You were mentioning working with lots of different coaches. So can you tell us a little bit about how you work with those coaches at your school now? Like, do you work with them all in the same way, or do you have different ways that you have relationships with them? What do you do when you collaborate with those different coaches?
I think it's different based on each person that I'm working with. So much of coaching is about personality and the way that you match with a person and how you get along. Clint and I used to do a lot of work together, and it was really nice. We had a really casual, really jokey relationship, and I could pop in anytime. And like our outside of school friendship really helped to build that. Whereas Matt Broughton and I also have an amazing collaboration relationship, but ours is a purely professional one that happens with inside school. So what I like about it is that also as a librarian, getting to know how you have to interact with that person and the things that they're going to need and what they're going to respond to really well is so important. So for example, with Matt, I can come in with it doesn't always have to be clear, but I can come in with a very clear task or idea and say, look, this is the thing I'd like to try. And he's very, okay, check, check, boom, boom, boom. Here's how we're going to go. We both take our things that we're going to do, and then we'll go off and maybe work on them separately and bring it back together. Whereas with other people, maybe when I'm working in a coaching relationship with a teacher, some teachers like to meet once and then take some time away to think about it and then come back and meet again, and then we plan something together, and then we take a little bit more time to think about it and come back again. So I think it's about finding the rhythm that really works with each person that you're working with. I'm really looking forward to an opportunity to build a coaching relationship with Kendra Engel, who's our new EAL teacher for the secondary here. And she is just really excited and really into reading and building a reading community. And she also has all this skill and background knowledge related to EAL that's not my strength. And so I'm hoping that she and I can have more of a regular, consistent meeting over the course of the year where I try to infuse, I don't want to say everything I do, because if she watches this might feel really overwhelming, but where I get to infuse everything that I do with her EAL knowledge to try and reach some of these kids that maybe I haven't been doing as strong of a job as I would like to.
I think that, coaching is not one size fit all, as you were saying, right? And how you work with different people. Those coaching cycles that you go through with different constituents in your school is constantly going to change. And being able to read those relationships and read those people and almost anticipate their needs and know when to kind of, sometimes you have to pull back a little bit because you've gone a little bit too far and you've pushed them too far out of their comfort zone. Or sometimes you're like, no, this is an opportunity to push further. I'm going to be here tomorrow and we're going to keep going, and I'm going to see you at the lunch table and I'm going to keep going. That is one of those personal skills, like those interpersonal skills that you can be taught, but also you have to just learn over time and with experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it does help. I mean, I've said this about librarianship. I think it's also really true with coaching. My best coaching relationships when people have been coaching me has just been when that person is really nice. Like, you just have to be nice. And nice looks different for everyone. Some people are, it's about bringing a joke at the beginning of every meeting that you have. And other people, it's about doing something for you on the side that makes things a little bit easier. But in the end, it comes down to like, what does being a really nice, easy person to work with look like for you?
So thinking about your role as a librarian, and you've already touched on this already with your new EAL teachers, but maybe thinking about other coaches that you've worked with. You've talked about your ed tech coach, your EAL coach. Some people might have math coaches or literacy coaches. What are some of those really strong opportunities that you would like coaches to come in and work with you, either to improve your own skills or to maybe it's bringing your guys' skills together in this kind of synergistic way to do even more? What are some of those opportunities that if I were a coach, I'd be like, come in and talk to me about this? Oh, okay.
I really want, right now, one of the things that I'm hoping Matt and I will work on together a little bit this year is the visual presentation of information. I went to a really great conference last year, and I've just been thinking a lot about, I have all this information that I want to make accessible to kids and really easy for them to use. And visual organization has never been my thing. Whenever I work with our director of learning, she and I will put together some stuff, and then she says, is it okay if I clean this up a little bit so it looks nice? I'm like, please do it. So I really need a person to coach me through that. And it's not do it for me, but teach me, maybe do it for me the first time, and then the second time really teach me how to do it better, and then the third time free me how to do it. So I'm looking forward to some coaching on the visual literacy part of delivering some of my content. I really would like some help on, actually, as a librarian, like really improving our EAL specific collection. Not that you have books definitely that are only for your EAL kids, but in collection development and selecting those and making some stronger, better choices. And I think that's something that Kendra and I are going to be able to work on. But even if I back up further from those very specific things, and I think about admin as coaches, like in the course of a regular review that they do of teachers during the year and in your professional growth plan, I'd even like to go back to some of the classic things of teaching and having a little bit of coaching as I go into my next review on how can I improve some of my instructional delivery for these large classes that's so much different now because I don't see all the same kids all the time. So working on what are some of the, I mean, I don't have a problem with classroom management, but you can always improve it. What are some of those basic classroom management things that you can use with much larger groups of kids and kids that you don't know individually and personally the way I used to when I was a high school English teacher?
Well, I love that you highlighted areas of growth for you specifically. How do you work with the coaches to help them, or how do the coaches that work with you approach you to find out that those are your goals? Like, how would the EAL teacher know that that was your goal? How would the tech coach know that that was your goal? How does that relationship work in your context, in your setting?
That is a great question. I never hesitate to ask for help. So I would say the reason that I know these people are going to help me is because they've made it very obvious at the beginning of the year, right from the start. A lot of times it happens in a faculty meeting. I know that I try to do this as a librarian. Introducing yourself, giving examples of what you can do to help people, giving specific examples of how it's happened before. I think that is really important. And then just, you know, for example, like for me, it's easy because IT and library at our school are very close. So that relationship is there and it's being developed all the time. But, you know, Kendra, our EAL teacher, is in an entirely other building from me, but she has made a point of coming down to see me. She brought me a pile of professional books the other day about some reading things that we'd been talking about. She sends emails and says, hey, here's something I've been thinking about. What do you want to do about this? My admin is also really great about connecting people from different parts of the school. We're going to be working on a parent coffee morning about reading and talking to parents about reading. And Rebecca, our MYP coordinator, is bringing Kendra and I together as EAL teacher and librarian to make that happen. So even though that's not a moment where one of us will be coaching the other one, it's developing those relationships in other ways outside of just your coaching relationship, I think. So availability and relationship development. It all comes back to being nice, even though that looks different for everybody.
So I feel like I want to process that a little bit more. I'm trying to decide whether we keep talking about this, whether we move on to the next question. But I feel like the way that you have described the openness and the niceness and the relationship and all that stuff with the coaches, that works really well for you because you never hesitate to ask for help. And I don't want to put you on the spot really here.
No, it's true.
And I'm not trying to. It's just what is in my head. How do, I guess you did answer it. You said that they make it obvious that they're there for support. They introduce themselves. They give examples of how they can help and specific examples of what's happened in the past. And your admin are great connectors, so they bring people together for other opportunities for relationship development. So you did kind of describe how that would work even for someone who does hesitate to ask for help, or is there anything else?
But I'm a Genki open person who's like, I need help. Please come do this. And you're like, well, what about the people who are like, leave me alone?
Yes.
Or maybe are more hesitant to ask for help. I think one of the ways that as a coach you could do that is, like, for example, as a librarian, I'll be going into the INS department next week, and I'm going to be meeting in the department with them to train them on the positives and how to use a new database that we've just gotten, and it has been wildly successful with the kids, but is being used on this level. And if we can upskill everybody a little bit and coach them in how to use it in their classes, I mean, it's just going to go straight through the roof. It's amazing what we can do with it. And the way that came together is, to be honest, like a persistent teacher who kept talking to me about this database and was so excited. And then the department head has asked me to come in. So my plan is to go in, work with them for about 20 minutes. But as I'm in there, they're each going to bring a topic that they want to apply this to in their class as a research topic for an upcoming unit. And I'm going to take notes on, okay, this person is interested in this, and that person's going to be researching that. And how can I use those opportunities to follow up later, maybe in the teacher's lounge, and say, oh, hey, Ben, how is that thing going with, I don't know, westward expansion? And then another person be able to ask them about economics and say, I'd really like to come in and work with you on this related to note-taking. Is there an opportunity for it? So I do think as a coach, you can actually get overwhelmed sometimes by the people who are really excited about it. So you need to make sure that you're leaving space and time in your schedule to continually go after those people who maybe aren't as excited about it. Because when I was a teacher, like a high school teacher, I didn't feel like I was getting coached at all really by anybody. I mean, I was mostly in American public schools. Not that there's anything wrong with those. I love them, and I'm a graduate of them, and I'm fantastic. But we didn't have that culture, and I didn't realize until I got into a position where I was coaching other people how great it could be. So it's important to be reaching out to those people, maybe visiting classes if you have that open culture school, which I think is really important. And we're really lucky to have that here.
I think your point about trying to fit in, the way you described going to a department meeting is like kind of fitting into the structure of the existing structure of the school. And I think that's a key element there. Like if people aren't asking for help and you're not sure how to help them, but you know that you need to leave that space and time in your schedule, a way you can do that is to bring yourself into whatever the currently existing structures are in the school. I think that's a solid strategy right there.
Is there also something to be said for, like, I think coaching a lot of times I think about it as a one-on-one relationship, but creating the resources and the tutorials and the things that you can then push forward so that you're coaching kind of, I don't know, maybe by proxy is what I'm looking for. I know I do this a lot as a librarian. And this year, as I focus more on secondary, I'm really looking forward to that, of creating those resources that I can send out to teachers that they may be using, even though they didn't have to work with me to use it. So I also think that might be the way to get in someone who's more resistant, is give them the resources for something that they need or a skill that they can develop. And then once they see that that's something they can try, then you've pulled them in a little bit more. So building up that goodwill ahead of time in another way.
Absolutely. You have, Clint, did you want to say something? Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No. I was just going to move on to the next question, actually.
Go for it. Yep, go for it.
Yep, because you alluded to something that you were talking about when you were in your U.S. public schools. You were saying you didn't have that opportunity. You maybe didn't even realize that you could work with a coach, or that there weren't even coaches available. So what did you do in those instances, or maybe now when you're trying to work with a coach and you don't have the opportunity, maybe the schedules don't work out, or you just can't find that common time? What is your strategy for working without a coach? Or what has been your strategy for working without that coach?
Do you mean me as an individual? If I am in need of coaching, but I can't get it, how do I deal with that?
Exactly.
I'm a librarian. I do research. The world is my coach, Clint. No, I think that I think trying to find those people outside of your school, right? Right. So of course, if you can find professional learning opportunities, but if you can find other mentors, I became a teacher as we were making the transition from, like, I can use search engines to find sample units that I can use to build stuff, into social media really becoming a place where you can connect with other people. And I've backed off recently a little bit on my social media use because it was starting to dominate my life a little bit, but I still know that there are mentors out there that I can connect with. There are people that I can talk to. And as a librarian, I have an amazing colleague here this year, Vicki Radford. But a lot of times as a librarian, you're very isolated in your building, and no one here is going to coach me on how to be a better librarian. So I've had to find those people at schools like NIST and ISB and WAB and other schools that I've worked at, and get them to coach me from a distance. And if you reach out and ask for help, people will ask for it. I mean, people will give it to you generally.
I think we've all been in that, well, maybe not every single person watching this, but especially someone who's in a support role like a librarian or a coach. We've been in those situations of being the only person in the school that does that job. And it is so isolating. And I've talked about this in many, many calls, so I try not to repeat myself all the time. But when I was in my first situation like that, it was 20 years ago. So it was before there was a lot of professional networking online. Like there wasn't Facebook for adults. There wasn't Twitter at that time. Like I was just super isolated. So now I think coming back to that idea of making those connections and maybe using social media in a really purposeful way to find those mentors that you can bounce ideas off of and connect with and kind of grow as a professional. Even if you don't want to use social networking for anything else, that right there is like super powerful, super purposeful, a really valid use of your time.
And I think really pinpointing a few specific people that you can develop a strong relationship with and keep that relationship going for a long time, that can be really valuable, because you can get so overwhelmed on Twitter. Of course, there are 9 million people that you could follow that are experts and are sharing everything. But if you can find a few people and develop those relationships, and it can be a mix. It can be social media, which is a great place to find them. And then also I stay in good touch with a couple librarians from my university days when I was training to be a librarian. And they're such amazing resources. And it's important, even if I never see them again, because we're all in different countries, to hang on to those relationships. So that kind of maintenance is really important.
And that also makes me think about the way we use any sort of professional networking, whether it's social media or that kind of private conversations. It's not about the number of people you know. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality. Mm-hmm. I will say oftentimes you need a little bit of quantity to find the quality, because if you only follow one person, it's going to be a little bit hard to like find the right person for you because you only got that one person. But I think once you've gotten to that point where you have that quality, I feel like sometimes there's this pressure to be like knowing everything and what everyone is doing, and I want to stay connected with all these things. But actually, if you have a strong group of like 10 people that you feel like you are genuinely being professionally developed and helping them in their own professional growth, that's solid. There's no need to make that group massive.
Everything else is just the decoration, and sometimes you pull a few pretty things, but you've got your core bit in the center. That's really important.
Nice. I know that you've talked about all the different types of coaches that you have at YIS, regardless of whether or not that's in their job title. And you've talked a lot about making coaching work and making coaching successful. In your opinion and your perspective as a librarian, what are those essential elements for coaching success? What do you need to build that culture of coaching in a school?
Oh, that is a great question. I think in a school where we have a coaching culture, but we don't really call us coaches for the most part. Part of it is an openness, right? We do have an open door policy. There's, tours come through twice a week, and there's just people all around. And I cannot tell you how many times I've said, messy means learning. It's so nice to see you. Come through again. So I think that open culture is really important. I also think somewhere that not just allows, but celebrates failure and then figures out how you're going to move past that. We have a nice culture of when something gets messed up and it goes badly, even if it's something pretty bad, you come in and you say, hey, this went wrong. Here's where we are. And nobody says, all right, we're going to hang you out to dry now and get angry about the things that happened. It's okay. How can we move forward and fix this thing now? So I think that is really important. You have to make people feel like they can take risks, and it's going to be okay when it doesn't go well. I like that a lot. But mostly just a spirit of collaboration, of bringing different people together for lots of different things. And that can be developed through, before we started this conversation, we were talking about professional learning days and spending time on things that might, like wellness, that might not seem immediately relevant to what you're doing. If you are a coach, being involved in, like next week on Thursday, I will go and I will spend the morning before I go to work with some other colleagues making lunches for an organization that serves the homeless here in Yokohama. And by spending that time with these people in a work context that is not specifically about my job, I'm developing those relationships and having casual conversations that will help make that coaching happen later. So the social aspect of schools is really important. I think those are the three big things for me. I hope it was three that I said.
And I think all of those things are super important. And I think all three of us have had the benefit and I would say the privilege of working at YIS. And it is a very special community because it is very tight-knit. People know each other. Whether I'm a high school teacher or a middle school teacher, I would still know the kids in the elementary school and I would know the teachers in the elementary school. And part of that is a function of size. I will admit, when you're working at a much, much bigger school with like 3,000 students, that might be a little bit harder. But I think also the school made an effort to prioritize that. And I really appreciate that wherever I go. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned from YIS is to prioritize community and prioritize connections beyond just your job description. And as a coach, that makes your job that much easier, right? Those are investments in time and people that pay dividends down the road.
Well, and we talked earlier about how important the relationship building is, but also understanding personalities, and that person A wants to be worked with in this way and person B wants to be worked with in a completely different way. You don't know that if you only walk into their classroom to be like, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to use visible thinking strategies. You have to have some understanding of who these people are and how they operate. And so that's where, the social part and those community connections are important.
Clint, you were talking a little bit, the way that you've described YIS, I would say is really accurate for when I was working there too. And hearing you talk about it makes me like, oh, I miss YIS. And the way, Clint, you're describing that, how the school prioritized the community and the connection, I think that is such an important point. And I feel like I don't want to say sad, and I don't want to pass judgment on larger schools because I know there's lots of stuff going on, but I really wish that message could come across to schools that are larger, because I think so many of the issues we have in larger schools is because we forget to prioritize the fact that this is a group of individuals who have come together in a career that they are so passionate about that they will, leave their home country and their families behind and, come to this place to do the best work they possibly can. But in essence, we are all people, and it is all about relationships. So I don't know, I'm just kind of grumbling, I guess, that I wish that could be more prevalent even in larger schools.
I would say
that it would be really interesting. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I would say that all schools, there's not going to be a school out there that says they wouldn't want to try and prioritize that. I just think that the larger your school gets, the greater the challenges. But even if you feel like that is the case at your school, then you can still prioritize it for yourself. And I think if you're in a school and you feel that way, that there are greater challenges to that, but if more and more individuals prioritize that, it becomes less of a challenge. And I think that is then where the independent individuals make the difference there.
Absolutely. Well said. So we've talked about all these ways where coaching is working really well. Katy, in your perspective as a librarian, where does coaching fail? When doesn't it work? And what can we do about it?
I think when I was thinking about this, one of the things that came to mind was when, as a coach, when I try to do too many things, I think when coaches are spread too thin, it's really important. I mean, I can easily apply this to an IT job, right? An ed tech job. If you come in and it's, all right, your job is to make everyone in the school a magical ed tech wizard, like that is never going to happen. And it depends on how many kids and how many teachers you have. So I think really in the beginning, especially targeting what is it that you're going to focus on and what are your priorities? What are the goals that you want to accomplish? And I said, what are the goals that you want to accomplish? But really identifying what are the goals that the school needs you to accomplish, that needs to be done for teaching and learning in your school, that needs to be done for the students and the community. So figuring out how to identify that in the beginning is really important. Of course, conversations with your admin are going to be helpful because they have a bird's eye view of the school. But you need to get into the ranks and talk to the people. And sometimes it's as simple as at that beginning of the year, hey, my name's Katy. Here's what I can do for you. Books are great. By the way, use a Post-it because we're an IB school and we love them, and put them on the whiteboard on the way out and tell us, what can I do for you? What would you like help with related to reading, research, or building community in your classroom? And then be able to collect some of that data to figure out what you're going to focus on. I think that's the biggest mistake, is spreading yourself too thin. I also think that coaches who struggle sometimes with being effective often are also people who struggle with managing their time really well. Because as a coach, if you promise to do these things for me, then you need to be able to get those done. And if you spend your entire day in meetings with people making plans, and then you don't have any time to create those resources or collect those items or get those plans together, people won't come back to you again. So.
That was like a bit of a mic drop right there.
No.
I feel like that's so true. If you don't follow through, people won't come back. And it's really hard, because I think a lot of people are coaches because they want to help and they want to solve problems, and they know that they have all these opportunities to do that. And sometimes and I'm certainly guilty of this, you get overexcited about all the things you possibly could do, that you don't stop to think about what you actually physically, like humanly, are capable of. And then if that happens, you can let things fall through the cracks. And the worst part is not even realizing that you didn't do the thing you said you were going to do, and that person doesn't come back to you, and you don't even really, you're not even sure, like, why didn't that person ever, like, why am I not working with that teacher anymore? But it's your fault because you spread yourself too thin.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a classic example of really where I've failed, because I do tend to overstretch myself, because I don't ever want to say no to anybody. And I see all these opportunities, and, it's part of what makes a passionate teacher, which is so important. But coaches really, it's starting off slowly. I was having this conversation with someone who's new the other day, and they're like, "Man, I'm just overwhelmed, and I want to create this thing, and I need to do that stuff." And I said, "You've been here for 4 weeks. Could we hold off on the beatings until January at least, take some time?" And so it really is about getting into classrooms and seeing people and seeing what they need and identifying stuff, and then passing that along in early days. So I will replay this section to myself later next week when I'm having a meltdown because I've overspread myself thin again.
It happens to all of us. So thinking about the ways that you work with coaches, and you've described so many different angles of that here in this conversation, what makes a coach's support invaluable to you? Like, what do coaches do when they are working with you as an individual that is invaluable? That's great service in your mind.
I use it. Oh man, they just make me so much better at what I do. They make everything. I mean, if I didn't have coaches, all of my documents and things I created would be in the original colors on Google Docs at the very top, in a class. I know it's horrific, in a classic color scheme. It would be so much text. I mean, all of my lessons would be scheduled for 15 minutes longer than they really needed to be, and would run 30 minutes over what they were. I think that, one of the things that I had to get coaching on, I would say, in the last 3 years, this year I'm mainly a secondary librarian. But in the last 3 years, I was an ELC to grade 12 librarian. And I was constantly pitching my grade 5 lessons for grade 8, because I thought that was what grade 5 was going to be able to do. And so I actually found a person who was an elementary school teacher, not a formal coach by any means, but that would help me work through those lessons to make those better. So yeah, they make me a more awesome version of myself, which is great, because in the end, we're all in this for all of these kids that are here, right? It feels good to be great. It feels good to walk away and be like, that was fantastic. I am a superhero. But the best part is that I leave and I'm like, and those kids actually know how to use the database now, or they're actually interested in reading this variety of books right now. And they're helping me reach a population of kids that I might never reach. Ooh, or I'm doing tomorrow, we're doing Maker Saturday here again at YIS. And it's just the coolest day. We have this amazing creative commons space that Clint helped me design before he moved on to his next job. And it just looks so great. And several Saturdays a year, we bring parents and their kids together in the Creative Commons space, and we make and create, and we do everything from crafty things all the way up to really high-tech coding. It's incredible. And this is something that Matt and I would not be able to do independently in the way that we're doing it. So in that way, we're bringing our coaching skills together, and we've really been able to lift up the level to something that you couldn't have done individually. So I think that's what it is. And that's why coaching is cool, because you get to help people be that extra piece of awesome.
You said it at the very, very beginning, you know, coaches give you that extra oomph, right? They're like the supercharger to the already awesome Katy. And I think that's really validating too for coaches to know that they have that effect. And it, you know, sometimes I think you can feel like you're just swimming against the tide, or you're not, you know, not sure what effect you're having because you're not maybe in that direct contact with students or like you used to be. But hearing you say that, it's like, okay, that's my validation that the work that I'm doing is having that effect as well. And so that is awesome to hear. So just kind of to finish this off, you know, you've had a wide variety of experiences, like you've documented, from public school in the US where you weren't really sure what coaches did to where you felt very supported by people who are in coaching roles. Can you think of a moment which you were like, oh man, that was the one experience where you decided whenever you have access to a coach, you are going to leverage that coach as much as you can, right? That you're like, I'm totally on board with this coaching thing. Or whenever I don't have a coach, I'm going to reach out to my network and find somebody who can support me in reaching my goals or reaching my objectives.
I think, like, looking at it retroactively, the first time was in my very first job where I was a brand new teacher and I was not good at what I was doing yet. No one is good at what they're doing in their first year of teaching. I was particularly not good at it. And a librarian saved me in a moment where I had no idea what to do. And she, even though at the time I didn't know that I was being coached and I didn't know that this was what was happening, I realized that there were people that I could reach out to around me that could help me get out of this isolated place that I am in teaching and help me to be better at my job. So that was really the very first moment, looking back, that had that impact. But then as the first moment where I realized, oh, I want to go out and actively seek coaching, actively find other people who can make me better at my job, is when I became a librarian, because I saw it from the perspective of a coach. And I saw that I'm able to give people the help that they didn't know that they needed. And now that I know about that, I want that for myself. I want to help that happen. And so I think it's really important to articulate it for people when you are coaching them, like, so that they're aware, even when it's happening on an implicit level, to try and make a way for them to know, like, hey, this is what I do, by the way. This is an extra boost. Please come see me anytime. I'm happy to do this, this, or this. Like, almost like a little business card that you can hand out. Here you go. Just remember, come back anytime. Nice to see you. That kind of thing.
I love it. It's like your verbal business card. You've got your, like, elevator pitch that you can share every time you speak with other colleagues. Katy, that was awesome. You not only gave us so many different perspectives, from like the teacher to the librarian to the person being coached, like you covered the gamut, but you also had tons of specific actual advice that coaches can take away from this conversation and reflect on and say, do I do that? Do I need to do that? Where can I kind of take the next step in my own professional development? So thank you so much for your time today. That was awesome.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation and getting to reflect on this. It was really nice.
And I miss you, Katy.
I miss you, Clint. Come back. No, in the future. We'll work again together, I promise.
Thank you so much for watching our video today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll know when we release a new video each week. At Eduro Learning, as you know, we want to help you coach better. To get you started, we've got a free digital download for you called 5 Strategies for Your Coaching Toolkit right in the description box below. And if you're looking for even more, we now offer private coaching sessions to help you work through any specific issue you might be having as a coach or even just as an educator. Do you have a problem you can't seem to solve? Get your introductory private coaching session for free with us. Learn more at edurolearning.com/private coaching. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.